This is a story all about how my life got flipped, turned upside all around. If you'd like to take a moment, just sit right down. I'll tell you how I became the queen of a place called Chi-Town. It was the South Side, born and raised, West Pullman Trigger Town. I was repping a train when I came across a guy. He was singing in the hood. He was hitting all the runs and smelling all good. He popped one little cherry and my mom got scared. She said, "You about to have a baby, you ain't even prepared." So I called up on my girls, and when they came near, I said, "I'm having all these feelings and I think one is fit." They said, "Tiny D, we got you. You ain't by yourself. You about to have a baby, but look at all his health." And though it took a while for me to really know, I came to understand having babies don't stop no show. So when a lot of folks do the math and realize just how young I was when I had my first child, they ask, how did you do it? How did you succeed? And the truth is that there wasn't some grand conscious plan. I wasn't a 14-year-old who said, despite the fact that I'm 14, I'm still going to succeed and beat all the odds. That wasn't it. I was just living every day, sometimes moment to moment. That's it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that experience. It's something that I've done in writing, but I don't think I've really talked about. So settle in, you can do your makeup alongside with me if you want to, have you some tea or whatever you want to do. And we'll talk about when Tiny had a baby. I was about 13 when we moved back to Chicago. I spent my life living in a bunch of different places. I think my brother and I stopped counting at about 13 schools by the time we were in 8th grade. We were really transient in a lot of ways by virtue of a lot of things, familial situation, socioeconomic status, all kinds of stuff. We spent some time in shelters. We were just, we had a life that was not as stable as some other folks' lives. So moved back to the city to what was then my great-grandmother's house, but my grand aunt at the time, my grand aunts were living there. My great-grandmother's house is it was kind of like a compound with 2 separate houses, and one of those houses had multiple apartments levels in it. So just, families, black families. So we moved back to the old neighborhood from the burbs, and I meet a boy. Boy's name is Bam. Names will not be changed to protect the guilty here. Boy's name is Bam, and Bam was the youngest on his crew. I was the youngest on my crew. We were both rappers. Problem was, Bam had a girlfriend. And, I was like, okay. And mind you, he has a girlfriend. And I remember the thing that made me decide that Bam was going to be my boyfriend. She made some comment about, I couldn't have him. The Leo in me took that as a challenge. And so began the thing that would change my life forever. Chasing some boy because some girl said I couldn't have him. Ain't that about her? So, yeah. I'm gonna fast forward through most of that because it's a whole real little trifling story, about girls and arguing, and we ain't even gonna talk about the number of girls that I had to subsequently fight dealing with him. We ain't gonna talk about that. Actually, we are gonna talk about that because that's why we're here. So I meet Bam and we start kicking it. Mind you, now I can probably say for sure that, he was doing a whole lot of back and forth with me and the other girl, and who knows how many other girls. At any rate, that's not the moral of the story. But start kicking it. I was a virgin at the time. I was about 13 when we met. I was a whole virgin, and older cousins of mine was like, yeah, everybody's having sex. Sure, that's the thing you do. And without going into too much detail, because my kids might be watching this and, well, they don't really need to know the details of how they were conceived. We started having sex, and there was no mention of condoms by not just me and him, but anybody around us. And as tends to sometimes happen when you are having sex without using condoms, I got pregnant. And I was 14 when I found out I was pregnant. Actually, it's interesting because while I remember like the exact details of when I found out I was pregnant with the other 2 pregnancies, like I don't remember exactly when I came to like thinking like, hey, something's up. Because actually I didn't find that I was pregnant with her until I was about 3 months. I was still like having a cycle and things like that. And so didn't know that I was pregnant for a minute, and was living my whole regular teenage gang banging out here in them streets life. Lord knows, it's a good thing she was okay, because anyway, so yeah, found out I was pregnant, and I remember calling him to tell him, because I think at the time we were on some off again type stuff, and I called him to tell him that I was pregnant. And this fool, without a smile on his face, and I know he wasn't smiling because I could hear over the phone that he was not smiling, said to me, "What you telling me for?" That's what the only boy I had ever been with who had, you know, taken my virginity said when I told him that I was pregnant at 14. What you telling me for? So there we are. He subsequently, you know, makes his way over to wherever I'm at the time and meets up with me. And I remember my older cousin was with me, and we were standing, dang it, I remember exactly where we were standing, right on 124th, where that store is that caught on fire. Dang it, what was the name of that store that caught on fire right there? But right, not too far from like Westmoreland Park, like right over there. So we over there, you know, talking, and he's basically asking me what I'm gonna do, and I'm like, what you think I'm gonna do? Like, I'm gonna have a baby, I guess. Or, you know, are we gonna have a baby? Like, what are the options here? What are we gonna do? I don't think he really understood at the time, but like for me, the decision was made pretty early. And, you know, it had a large part to do with the fact that my maternal grandmother died after a botched abortion. Mind you, she didn't have one under like, you know, the healthiest and safest of conditions, but I was convinced that it had something to do with like our blood, because the women in my family have had reproductive health issues for a while. And so I was convinced that like if I had an abortion that I would hemorrhage and die. Like, I was deathly afraid of that. I knew that there was a risk that I could hemorrhage while in labor, because that had happened to women in my family as well. But I figured I had a better shot at surviving childbirth than I did an abortion. I mean, and that's just the real of it. So I'm pregnant, and my mother at the time wasn't living near me. I want to say she lived in like Milwaukee or something. I don't really know. And so I didn't even tell her I was pregnant. She heard it through the grapevine. And then one day she showed up and she was like, "You got something to tell me?" And I was like, "Ain't nothing you ain't already know." Because, you know, I'm 14 and I'm pregnant and I got a flip mouth. And that is how I told my mama I was pregnant. Ain't nothing you don't already know. Good Lord. I was a whole mess. A whole mess. I still might be a little bit of a mess. God is not through with me yet. So yeah. So tell my mama I'm pregnant. At this point, the whole neighborhood know I'm pregnant. Everybody shaking their heads and looking at me like, tisk, tisk, tisk. You know, I'm at the time thinking like, mind y'all own business. Like, what y'all worried about me for? Why y'all all up in this? I was scared as hell though. Yeah. So I was about 90 pounds when I got pregnant. 90 pounds. At the end of that pregnancy, I was 154 pounds. Mind you, I did not start showing until I was like 7 months. So for like 7 months, my stomach looked just like my stomach looks like right now. Like, I was like this at like 7 months, and people was like, are you really pregnant though? And I'm like, do people really lie about being pregnant at 14 though? Like, I don't know. Anyway, and then overnight, boom. But before that, us sister was getting thick. I was all, because everything else was getting thicker except for my stomach. And then one day I woke up and boom, it was very clear that I was very, very, very pregnant. So throughout the whole pregnancy, you know, my 16-year-old on again, off again boyfriend is irritating my whole spirit, all my nerves by his very existence. There were other components of the relationship that you've probably heard me talk about in different spaces, but isn't the, you know, the purpose of this video. So we'll get on that later. So, you know, stressed out for a number of reasons, right? I don't have stable housing. I don't have a job. I can't even legally work a job. I'm 14. I can't even get a job permit. Definitely was not thinking about school at the time for a number of reasons. I was in these streets, like for real. And I think a lot of people really don't understand the extent to which I was, because they see the me now and they're like, oh, you're so put together. And it's like, bro, I'm put together with some crazy glue, some duct tape, a little bit of like holding on for dear life. Trust me. So I am, you know, just pregnant, and for like physically, I was fine. Like physically, that pregnancy was the best one that I've had. You know, didn't really have any morning sickness except for, I remember the one day I got morning sickness. I was visiting my paternal grandmother, who did not know that I was pregnant, or who I hadn't yet told I was pregnant because grandma knew. But visiting my grandma Ruth, and now I'm throwing up. I'm like, bro, I ain't been throwing up this entire pregnancy. The minute I go visit my grandmother, here comes the vomiting. So I'm throwing up. Grandma already know the business. And boom, there you go. Erica's pregnant. Also, I tell you about how my cousin told the aunt that I was living with at the time that I was pregnant. I know I'm telling this story all out of order, but deal. My auntie, we were late for curfew one night. We late for curfew, and we come in the house, and you know, my auntie giving us the usual, y'all think y'all grown. Tell me why my cousin was like, Erica pregnant. What? How was that an excuse for missing curfew, sis? That's how she told my business, because we was late for curfew. Okay. So at this point, everybody know I'm pregnant. Aunties, grandmama, mama, his people, whole neighborhood. I'm running around town thicker than a snicker with no job and no stable place to stay. But I got it all together because I'm young and dumb, and I think I really have it all together. Let's see. So we do the on and off again thing, me and the little boy, for, you know, the length of the pregnancy. Neighborhood creepers start creeping out because, you know, apparently once the neighborhood first see that you are pregnant, they figure that you are then available to their old grown asses. And so I really learned that, like, people ain't shit. And by people, I mean grown men who watch you grow up. So that's all happening, and I'm just like navigating without really knowing much of anything. So I'm living with my auntie Ernestine throughout the whole pregnancy, and she's basically like taking care of me, providing a roof over my head. Food is, all of that is coming from her, for the most part, because again, I ain't even old enough to work a job. I mean, I had a little hustle that, you know, I would pick up every now and again, but nothing that was able to sustain me. So I at my auntie's house one night, and I was like, man, I was pregnant for her for so long. I carried that little girl 42 weeks. Like, I was pregnant forever. Was tired of being pregnant, and then somebody was like, drink some castor oil and take a hot bath, take a warm bath, and I forget what else they said. So I drank some castor oil, took a hot bath, and jumped double dutch. Double dutch. 9 months pregnant. Well, 10 months pregnant. Jumped double dutch, and that night, got up, started going to the bathroom. Went to the bathroom one time, and the bathroom was connected to my aunt's bedroom. So like she could hear when I was going to the bathroom. So I get up and go to the bathroom the first time. I get up and go to the bathroom the second time. I get up and go to the bathroom the third time. Next thing I know, here come my auntie on the stand, because the bathroom was kind of had the door to her bedroom and to the outside. So she opens up the door to her bedroom and she's like, "Boo, you in labor." Listen, of course I was, but I didn't know. And I think like that was the time where I looked down and like there was a mucus plug. So I was like, oh okay. I'm in labor. So I'm in labor, and my Uncle Donald, my Auntie Ernestine's husband, is gonna drive me to the hospital. Now the hospital was Rush Presbyterian, which was all the way out. We on 124, okay? Rush is on like 50 something? I don't know. Don't tell my child I don't remember exactly where the hospital is. Anyway, no, I'm so wrong. Good Lord. I was born at Rush. The girl child was born at Provident. So Provident was still somewhere down there. It was far away. So we get in the car, and my uncle is driving, and I promise, I think he was trying to punish me. Like, I legit think he was trying to make me remember like some consequences of getting pregnant. He hit every pothole that there is to hit on the way to the hospital. Like, I'm just in the car like, just, dude. The contractions weren't that bad though. Like, I mean, probably outside of my auntie saying like, "Boo, you in labor," I probably would have been still at the crib chilling. So get to the hospital, and the nurses are all like, what are you doing here? You know, they're just looking at me, because if you could see how small I was with just a belly, and then I still had my little baby chunkiness to my little chipmunk cheeks. I can now only imagine what they saw coming in. So get there, and the nurses, my auntie had to go to work, so like they got me situated, and then she went home to go to work, cause you know that's what you got to do. So word gets around that there's a 14-year-old who is about to have a baby, and that she's in there by herself. Next thing I know, because y'all know how black women are, I got 6 midwives in my room. I got 6 midwives, and they are all like, you know, working me, helping me through this. I got 2 holding my legs. I got 1 rubbing my back. They're all, you know, trying to encourage me and cheer me on. And like to this day, you know, I wish I could find them and just thank them. I didn't even recognize at that moment what it meant to have all of them there and supporting me, you know, because I was still under that like, I can do this by myself, I don't need nobody mentality, without knowing just how much I needed them. And thankfully they knew, even if I didn't have the sense to know. So I'm there, and 42 hours of labor, very minimal contractions. Like, that labor didn't hurt. I can say that it didn't really hurt. 42 hours later, I'm pushing, getting ready to have a baby, and my Auntie Ernestine comes back into the hospital room. Boom, baby comes out, and there she is. I was always glad that my auntie was able to get back like just in time, because again, even as much as I like swore I didn't need anybody, like I did. And I just love that she was able to like have that and be that. I miss her. Goodness. Whew. Okay. I didn't think I was gonna cry about that, but here we are. I'm not gonna cry. So all that happens, baby's born, and you might be asking like, girl, where your baby daddy? I don't know, okay? I don't know. I just know I'm in the hospital and I'm having a baby. And I don't really know what's going on. I don't think I didn't call him. I didn't call him. I'm pretty sure somebody told him. Because again, I was in there for 42 hours. So bro, somebody done told you I'm in here having a whole baby. That's yours. At any rate. So he wasn't there. And comes time to name the baby. Originally her name was supposed to be Andriana because Bam's real name is Andre. I'm telling all the business, but sue me, bro. Bam's real name is Andre. So she was gonna be Andriana. Don't ask me why I was finna name my baby after some guy who we was on again, off again, stressing me out during my whole pregnancy. But I mean, this is the 5th bad decision I done made at this point. So I was like, I'm not naming my baby after him. Like, he wasn't here when I was, you know, he wasn't shooting into gym. He wasn't there when I was pushing, okay? So I was like, I'm giving her a different name. But then I had to think about a name, like, okay, what am I gonna name her? So we're in the hospital for a minute because the baby was born with group B strep. And so they had to like treat her, like as soon as I delivered her, they like rushed her out of the room. I had a few seconds to identify her birthmark because I was convinced they was gonna try to steal my baby. That's also why I didn't have any pain meds like throughout the entire labor and delivery. I had no pain meds in large part because one, like I said, it didn't really hurt that much, but two, I was convinced that they was gonna steal my baby because, you know, I knew that I was 14 and I know how things work. And people could be like, oh my goodness, you're so crazy for thinking that. Act like people don't steal babies. So I didn't have any pain medication because I wanted to be fully awake when she came. So when she came and right before they whisked her off, I looked and found the birthmark. She has one on her back and one on her feet. Well, she got a bunch, but those are the ones that I was able to see. And I was fully satisfied that when they brought my baby back, I would know if that was indeed my baby. And we ended up staying at the hospital for about 10 days. So we're in the hospital and like day 7, day 6, they was like, hey, you gotta name this baby. And I was like, I kind of really don't because I came home as twin B. Me and my brother didn't have names when we came home. So I just figured I'll take the baby home and when I find a name for the baby, I'll name the baby. Apparently they were doing things a little different than they used to doing when my mama was having babies. And they was like, no, you really gotta name this baby. It's gonna be way too much work to like come back and then name the child. So there I sit, trying to figure out what to name the baby. And I'm like surrounded by, you know, a few of the midwives because they were there throughout the whole process. And I look down at the baby in my arms and the blanket that she's wrapped in says Angelica Healthcare. And that's it. I was gonna call you Angelica. No. I named the baby Angelica. Yes, my daughter's name came from the blankets of the hospital. And if you go into some hospitals today, you will still see those blankets that say Angelica. And there's a really cute video about me giving her one of those blankets on her 19th birthday. But yeah, so I named her Angelica. One of the nurses named her Shanice. And boom, there I was. And so she's in the neonatal intensive care unit because of the group B strep. And she's there, like I said, for about 10 days. I'm finally discharged. And so I'm there with her. And the nurses are like, what are you doing here? Like, you need to go home and shower and sleep. And I'm like, no, I just want to be with my baby. And finally they were like, look, you have to go home and shower and sleep. And they were really great about being with her. And so I'm like taking public transportation back and forth. Public transportation, like fresh, didn't have a baby. And I'm all the way on the CTA going to see my baby. So they finally let her go home. And mind you, again, here's where my auntie Ernestine like really just stepped in, because all this time, like you would think that I was like doing things to prepare for a baby, right? You would be a little wrong. And by little, I mean a lot. I don't even think, I don't know what I had. Like, I really don't know what I had. I just know that when I brought her home, I had what I needed for her. My aunt had gotten the things that we needed for her and to take care of a baby. And so there was. Finally, she's released. Mind you, all this time she's been in the hospital, and even when I was in the hospital, so the nurses are like spoiling me, they're spoiling her. And I get home and I get this whole spoiled baby. She don't want you to put her down. She wants you to rock her and walk with her the whole nine. And I just remember being so sleepy to the point where like one night I was like walking and rocking with her, and all of a sudden I just felt boom, I had fallen asleep. I was standing up, walking, and had passed out sleep and hit my head. Thankfully I didn't hit her head that time. So yeah, there we are with me just like trying to figure out when this baby is gonna stop crying, and she wouldn't stop crying. And then Bam came over and tried to visit, and I just couldn't take the smell of him. Like, oh my goodness, that is something. I don't know what happened to them pheromones between the time I laid down with him to the time I had that baby, but suddenly I couldn't stand the smell of him. So there we are. I'm 14. Well, I turned 15 2 weeks after I had her. So there I am, 15. There he is, getting ready to be 17. And there's this little person, and don't nobody really know what to do with him, let alone me. But somehow, you know, we figured it out, you know. And by we, I mean me and her. She is today 24, an amazing, amazing human being, who certainly, you know, is that way, I think, in spite of being born to, no, I'm not gonna say in spite of. I'm gonna say she is that way because of who she is. What I mean to say is that I didn't make who she is. She made who she is, and she's an amazing human being. And we have been through some of everything. That girl child and I have been, we have been there and back. She has been with me through living in 9 different states because my mother passed on that traveling spirit to me. And so, you know, my children and I did a lot of the same. And she's just, you know, been with her mother and trooping and trucking for quite some time. So yeah, I subsequently had 2 more children, despite the doctors telling me that I wasn't gonna have any more. Because a couple months after having Angelica, my appendix ruptured. And caused a whole lot of issues in insides, and they was like, you're probably not gonna be able to have no more babies. And they lied big time. So yes, maybe one day I will get around to telling y'all the story of how I was pregnant with my oldest son for about 5 months before the doctor was able to confirm that I was pregnant. Yeah. He all the way moved inside me before a pregnancy test confirmed that I was pregnant. So that's a whole nother story. But yeah, had a baby at 14. You know, if you know the ending of this story, then you know that I subsequently went on to do a bunch of things that I've wanted to do with my life. That there's still some things that I'm doing with my life, but there's certainly, in the, you know, traditional sense of like folks thinking that having a baby at 14 is the end of someone's life. It's not. I went to college, graduated. I have a, you know, by most accounts, successful career as a grant writer. In addition to that, I write, I'm a blogger. I have amazing, healthy relationships with amazing, healthy people. And you know, having a baby at 14 certainly did cause me to live life in a way that I might not otherwise have lived it. But it certainly didn't stop me from living life. It certainly didn't stop me from being able to achieve many of the things that I've wanted to achieve in life. And likely, you know, not likely, I know that in a lot of ways, motherhood for me at an early age, you know, motivated me to do some things that were different, to, you know, get myself out of situations that were very, very harmful to me, to my children, such that we are, you know, in a very different place now. So to that I say, you know, having a baby young certainly changed the trajectory of my life. It didn't end my life. It didn't stop my life. It didn't. So don't let anybody tell you that it has to, right? Now, I'm not gonna look in your face and lie to you and tell you that it was easy, because it wasn't. It's still not. So that I won't do. But it's not impossible either. And that, my dears, is the story of how I got pregnant at 14. As always, you know, comment section is open. If you got questions, I'm willing to answer them. And if you watch this video, then the least you could do is like it, share it, something. Y'all know how algorithms work. Like, stop fronting. Like, stop acting like you don't know how this works. Like the video. Like, just like the video. I don't ask you for much. Like, I just spilled my whole guts and you can't even just like hit the button. For real though? That's how we doing? Cool. I'm gonna go find me some business then. Bye, y'all.